Hello everyone, and welcome to this, my first of 3 videos on the Nikon One J1. This is a compact, mirrorless, interchangeable lens camera. Now what that means is it's small. This is a really very small camera. Interchangeable lens means that a lens can be taken off of it and a new one can be put on at any point. Mirrorless means it has no mirror. The sensor data is what we're going to see on the viewfinder screen on the back of it. The sensor, as we just saw, is a 1-inch, what's called 1-inch. It's a 13.2 by 8.8 millimeter, 10 megapixel CMOS sensor. So 1 inch is what's called the format, but the size of it is 13.2 by 8.8, pixels, or millimeters rather. It has a multi-mode through the lens meter with matrix, 4.5 millimeter center weighted, and 2 millimeter autofocus point linked spot, which is a very nice type of metering. We'll talk about that in the second video. Meter modes. The shutter speeds are 30 seconds to 1/16,000th. That is a blisteringly fast shutter speed, along with bulb and time, with an up to 30 frame per second burst speed. And then when you do that, this camera has the capability to pick the best 5 of those photos. So kind of an interesting and curious cell phone-ish type of interface. Tells you a lot about who this camera was intended to be an upgrade for. It has an ISO range of 100 to 6400 as well as auto. The flash sync speed is 1/60th of a second, and it can record video using the 1080p MP4s with the H.264 codec at 29.97 frames per second, with a slow speed of 400 to 1200 frames per second if you drop the resolution to 320 by 120 pixels. The Nikon J1 was built for the mid-range enthusiast, and the One lineup writ large was a compact but generally capable lineup of mirrorless small sensor bodies aimed at people who wanted to have a small, easily carried, compact mirrorless camera. Looking at the manual for this camera, personal opinion here, the manual is an absolute catastrophe. Everything is referenced, but the organization within it's a complete mess. In Nikon, what that tells me is that Nikon doesn't appear to have put as much effort into this camera's manual as they do into their typical camera manuals. And that would indicate to me that this camera did not receive quite the same level of internal support as the DSLRs that they were making at the time did. And quite honestly, I would say that that's too bad, because there is so much going right with this camera in this camera lineup, the whole One series, that really Nikon could have made this into something I think pretty incredible, and it just never happened. This was made by Nikon in China from 2011 until 2012, so at this point that this video is recorded, it's about 12 years old. It was preceded by nothing, as this was part of the inaugural Nikon One camera lineup, concurrent with the V1, and it was followed by the J2 and then the balance of the J series, which ran through the J5, ending when the Nikon One lineup was discontinued in 2018. Now, if you have your Nikon J1, we're going to do as we do on this channel and go over all of the features starting on the top. Well, technically the sides, we have strap bars right here on each side, and that's where you would connect your camera strap. This little symbol right here is your sensor plane indicator. That tells you where the image sensor is if you need to do high magnification, enlargements and microscopy and so forth. Pop-up flash. Here we have the speaker for video playback. This is the power lamp that lets you know if the camera is on or off. On-off button, shutter button, movie record button, and if we turn this on, you can see the power lamp glows green when the camera turns off, and green again when, well, turns on, and then glows green when it turns off. Let me actually extend the lens. This might help. There we go. And it now should, does it stay on? It does not stay on. So it only turns on and off when the camera power cycles. So taking off the lens and looking at the front of the camera, here we have the Nikon make and series model number. Here we have the stereo microphones. There's one on each side of the camera so you can record stereo audio. Lens mount. This is your lens mounting index, which lines up with this little mark on the lens when you mount it. We'll see more of that in the second video. Here we have your self-timer light, and I believe also the AF assist light, lens release button, and this is your infrared port for a remote control. Really, when you look at the things that are on this, there's not a whole lot missing from this camera in terms of what it can do. It's actually kind of surprising that a camera of this tier had as much as it does. So, at any rate, editorials aside, on this side we have a whole bunch of nothing. On this side, we do have a couple of things. We'll lift up this cover here, and we can see, there we go. Underneath it, we have 2 ports. These are a mini USB port. This could be a USB 2 port. I'm not sure which, given the age of this camera. It's either USB 1 or USB 2. And then here we have an HDMI port, so if you wanted to connect this to a TV to do playback, you could do that. The USB port would be used for data connection, but quite frankly, it's going to be much slower than just plugging your SD card into your computer, popping the SD card out of here and plugging it in. On the camera's back, the main feature is this gigantic LCD screen, and then we also have the flash pop-up button right here. This is your feature button. The F right here will take you into the different features. This is your thumbnail button, which is used during playback. This is the mode dial right here. The display button activates the display. We'll see a whole lot of this in video 2. Playback button. This is your, then here we have your menu button down here, and then the delete button to delete images when you're playing them back. Now here we have the cross pad, which is used as a command wheel that you can spin, as well as being a button that you can push the push down to use as a button. It also has your self-timer control, flash control, auto exposure bracketing or exposure compensation button, and AEL, AFL button control. And those are when you push on the left, bottom, right, and top. And then in the middle, you have the OK button right here. The camera's bottom has a few things to look at. We have here the tripod socket that you can connect the tripod to, production information, and a serial number over here. This is the battery chamber. So in the second video, we'll see really how to do this, but the battery chamber pops open, and here's where you put your SD card, and here's where the battery goes. So there are some things not to do with your Nikon J1. Don't let it get wet. It's not weather sealed. It's an electronic device. Electronics and water don't get along very well, and so you don't want to ruin it. Don't leave it in your car. Somebody who's interested in stealing a camera isn't going to ask whether or not it's an entry-level or old camera. They're just going to take your camera. Also, extreme heat, like in the summer, or extreme cold, like in the winter, can cause the damage to any of the plastic components, but can also cause if there's any lubricating oils, such as in the aperture blade mechanism of the lens, to get into the wrong places if they get really thin, or get gummy if they break down from being really cold, and that can affect the way that the camera operates. Don't store it in a plastic bag or box. Plastic is water permeable, and if moisture gets in there, it can cause fungus to grow in the optics of your lens and ruin an otherwise good lens. And just remember, your Nikon J1 is a precision tool that should be handled with care and respect. As long as you take care of your camera will take care of you.